Okay, yeah. So you said that you hate our disingenuous arguments, but
Yeah.
I would say the opposite. You guys definitely. Well, I spoke to you. You hate your Quran, man, because we went over some verses and you showed that you reject the Quran, bro. My goodness.
Bro, I spoke to you for 2 hours about your reading comprehension dilemma. You just refuse to understand the Quran in its totality. You like to isolate stuff.
You want to see an example of you hating the Quran?
To be honest with you, I came up here to talk to you about Allah having a son. I talked to your man Darren about it the other day. He was also disingenuous.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not this topic. Well, we could kind of. It's kind of on that range. When it comes to Allah having a son, oh, Darren is right here too. When it comes to Allah having a son, could he have a son by himself, or would he need a mate to have a son with?
There's nothing in the Quran that suggests that if he chose to have a son, a mate would be that would be something obligatory.
So when chapter 6, verse 101 says he's the originator of the heavens and the earth, how can he have a son when he doesn't have a mate?
Right. So this is one example of why Allah does not have a son. It's not the only example.
When he says how can, that's dealing with somebody's ability, right?
Correct.
So when he says how can he have a son when he doesn't have a mate, means that he needs a mate in order to have a son, right?
If that was the only verse of the Quran, I might agree with you, but we have other Quran verses as well that disagree with that understanding.
So that means that just other verses to contradict this verse then?
No, we call it what you Christians call it, the harmonization between the verses.
So when the Quran says, how can he have a son when he doesn't have a mate, you would agree that this statement is communicating that he needs a mate to have a son in this verse, right?
No, I would agree that Allah does not have a son, and he's given one example of why he doesn't have a son. For instance, he doesn't have a mate.
Well, he doesn't say that that's why he doesn't have a son. It's a how can he? How can he have a son when he doesn't have a mate? So it's talking about his ability to have a son, right?
Sorry, I got a call.
It's okay.
So we go over to the Quran, chapter 39, verse 4. It clears things up on that.
What does it say?
So this would be the second premise to your argument. And it says, God could have chosen from his creation whom he willed for offspring, but he is far above this. He is the one, the Almighty. So it says here clearly that he could have chose. It doesn't say he could have chose a mate. It says he could have chose from his creation to be his offspring.
Yeah, and how would he have that offspring?
The verse is clear. He would have just chosen them.
Well, so if this is the case, because this is where we're at, either the verses harmonize or they contradict. One verse says that Allah needs a mate in order to have a son, and the other verse says that he can choose a son. So this would mean that the only way that he can choose a son is if he has a mate to be able to choose a son with, or else you have a contradiction.
So I was saying, no, this is your understanding of what the verse is saying. And I don't fault you for having that understanding. But what I'm telling you is that when the Quran says, how can Allah have a son when he has no mate? This doesn't imply that this is the only avenue for him to have a son had he chose to do that.
When it says that, I'll ask it again just to make it clear. When it says how can, that deals with someone's ability. That's dealing with Allah's ability, correct?
If you want to word it like that, yeah.
All right. So we agree that this is talking about Allah's ability. So in regards to his ability to have a son, it says, how can he have a son when he doesn't have a mate? Meaning he doesn't have the ability to have a son without a mate, correct?
No, sir.
Then congratulations, you hate your Quran, bro. You hate your Quran.
So once again, just on the verse that we're on, not going anywhere else. So if Allah says, how can he have a son when he has no mate? Would that be contradictory for me saying, how can Allah have a son when there's nobody high enough to be his son? Would those now be two contradictory statements? Or would they just be different examples of why he doesn't have a son?
Those, if you were to harmonize them, it's dependent on Allah having a mate to even have a son to choose in the first place.
So what you're basically saying about Islam in the Quran is that Allah has some type of mating ability.
That's what you're saying. That's what the Quran says, not me.
No, this is what I mean when I say you guys misrepresent our text. No one in 1,000 years has ever believed that what the Quran says is that Allah has the ability to mate.
That's a big claim. I'm pretty sure that there would be people that would disagree, but I couldn't care less about what people think Allah can do. I only take from the Quran and what the Quran says Allah can do. And according to the verse, Allah is refuting people who are saying he has children, has offspring, by saying, hey guys, how can I have a son? How can I have offspring when I don't have a mate? Meaning, if he had a mate, then he can have a son, and therefore you guys can bring these accusations that he has a son if he had a mate. But he doesn't have a mate, so that eliminates any possibility that he has a son. That's his refutation.
Okay, so let's read another verse and see if you keep that same energy.
Why do we have to go to another verse? We didn't finish this one.
Because my argument seems to you seem to not be catching it, or you're catching it and ignoring it. So we're just going to make it plain for you and the people.
If I say, how can I drive the car when I don't have the keys? That means that by the statement that I need the keys to drive the car, correct?
That means that that's one thing you need, but not the only thing that you need.
Got it. So one thing that Allah needs to have a son is a mate, correct?
No, sir.
There it is. Congratulations, Abu Nori. You hate your Quran.
I mean, you can say all that, but you gave an example of someone needing keys to drive a car. And now you're comparing that to God having a mate. They're two different.
That's with Darren.
Say again.
Yeah, so I'm not comparing Allah having a son with somebody having a car or keys. I'm comparing the grammar of the statement. The statement is, how can I drive the car when I do not have the keys? Meaning, I need the keys to drive the car. That's what the statement communicates. Same way, Allah says, how can I have a son when I do not have a mate? Meaning, I need a mate in order to have a son. That's what the statement itself communicates. So it's communicating a need, is what I'm saying. Both the statement communicates a need.
So your claim is that Allah needs a mate to have a son. Is that correct?
It's not my claim, because I love the Quran. The Quran makes the claim. Okay? I'm only reading. What's the only thing we doing around here, fellas?
We just read, man. We just read.
That's it.
Just read.
The little song. Just read.
You just read, but why you not reading 39:4 that I gave you that says he would have chosen? Why you just read what you want to read?
You know what? Like I told you, because I love the Quran, before I got corrupted, I love the original Quran. I see a way to harmonize those verses. I could take the other route and say, well, those verses just contradict each other. Because one is saying that Allah can choose to have a son if he wanted to with no help. The other one is saying that he does need help to have a son. So I could go that route and just say it's a contradiction. However, I don't believe that it's necessarily a contradiction. I believe that both are harmonized, that Allah can choose a son from his creation. If he wanted to have a son, he would just need a mate to do it. He need help.
And does that agree with the spirit of the Quran and its verses?
That agrees with the spirit of the Quran and its verses, because the Quran is explicit that, one, he needs a mate to have a son. And if there were any contradictions in the book, it would not be from Allah. I love the Quran, man. I'm trying to defend it. I'm on team Allah. I love the original Quran. So I believe these verses harmonize. I don't think it's a contradiction. Allah needs a mate to have a son, man.
It's in the Quran.
It's not my thoughts. It's not my interpretation. It's what it says.
So once again, the Quran does not say that Allah needs a mate to have a son. What the Quran does say verbatim. Yeah. So what Allah does say in the Quran is, how could he have a son when he has no mate? So it doesn't mean here that if he were to choose to have a son, that having a mate would be that's contingent upon him having a mate. That's not what's meant here. That's not how we understand it. That's the understanding, the straw man you're choosing to argue against.
A straw man?
Straw man?
Tell me what a straw man is real quick, Abu Nori.
It's you creating an argument and then arguing against that.
So creating a false argument, creating a false representation of a belief or a position, and then arguing against that false representation, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Be honest with me. Be honest with me. You usually, you're kind of balanced. Sometimes you're honest with me. Sometimes I feel like you're not. But for the most part, you're honest with me. Did I read the Quran verse verbatim?
Yeah, you read it verbatim.
Okay. And according to the Quran verse verbatim, it says, how can he have a son when he doesn't have a mate? That's what it says verbatim, right?
Yes, sir.
So when it says that verbatim, what does that entail when he says, how can he have a son when he doesn't have a mate? What does he need based on the statement? Based on what the Quran says, based on this statement, what does he need in order to have a son?
Based on that statement alone with no other statement. Is that what you're trying to force me into?
No, just based on this statement. Based on the statement.
So I'm not a one verse Muslim. We accept the Quran in its totality.
I understand. I'm just the statement itself. What does the statement entail?
Sure, no problem. Let's play your game. If I were to isolate this verse and ignore the rest of the Quran, then it would entail exactly what you're saying, sir.
So
good thing we don't have to do that.
So I'm not asking you to isolate anything. The only thing I'm asking you to do is to tell me, like for example, if I were to ask you, when it says in the Quran, Allah does not beget, nor is he begotten. What does that mean?
It means Allah does not have children, nor is he the child of someone.
There's some feedback. What's going on there? Ooh, that was hurting.
Yeah, I'm moving around. My wife's sick, and I got my kids in here with this loud music. You can probably hear.
Okay, you're good now, though. So it means exactly what it says, that Allah doesn't have children, right? Nor is he born.
Correct.
Do you need another verse to tell you what that statement means?
No, I don't need another verse for that specific statement. No.
So you're able to comprehend statements, blatant, explicit statements that the Quran makes, without having to go to other verses to tell you what a verse just said, right? You can look at what the Quran says very clearly when it's clear on something. Now, I can grant you if there's something that's a little bit more ambiguous, you can use, or you might need other verses to bring some clarity on the subject. But when things are just, blatantly said, you don't need another verse to come and be like, oh, well, I can't understand when Allah says he doesn't beget nor is he begotten. I don't understand what that means. So let me go to another verse to figure out what this is saying. You don't need that. So in the same way, this is a very clear and explicit statement. How can he have a son when he does not have a mate? The statement is clear. Based on the statement, what would Allah need, according to the statement, to have a son?
Am I free to answer?
Yeah.
Okay. So once again, like I've said 2 or 3 times now, you keep on trying to force me into this narrow hallway where all I have is one verse to work with. What you did a second ago was you said some verses are clear. You don't need an extra explanation from another verse. Some verses are ambiguous. In that case, you might. I say that once again, you misrepresent us because that's not the only options. For instance, let's give a reasonable example. Allah says in the Quran to strike at their fingertips. Can I just isolate that? And every time I see a Christian go and do things physically on you? No. Is that verse ambiguous? No. I understand what strike their fingertips off means, but I need another verse to fully understand what that means, though it's not ambiguous. So the same thing applies here. The verse is not ambiguous, but it doesn't necessitate, because it's not ambiguous, that there's not other verses that go into the proper understanding of it.
Would you agree that the verse about strike them at their fingertips is in a context with verses before and after it that tells you what Allah's talking about and the situation he's talking about?
Yes, and in verses in other chapters.
Right. So the verse within as strike at their fingertips is giving you a particular situation and context that you see within the verses that same verse is in. You see that within that. So you don't have to go to another verse, another chapter to figure out what it's saying here. Although you can, no problem. I'm not saying that that's not allowed, but you don't need to do that to bring clarity for the Quran in every situation. You don't need to do that even for that verse you brought up. You don't got to do that. See, notice I can give you, I give the Quran credit where credit's due. There's sometimes, not majority of the times it doesn't, but there's sometimes where it actually gives context, where you read a verse and the context helps you understand what the heck it's talking about. So, for example, when it says in our verse, chapter 6, verse 101, its context, the prior verse before says, that they are saying, they are attributing the jinns as associates with him and saying that Allah has children, has sons and daughters. Then the next verse says he's the originator of the heavens and the earth. How can he have a son when he doesn't have a mate? And he's the creator of all things, the knower of all things. So I don't need to go into another verse to tell me what this means. Allah is clearly refuting this idea that he has children. Can you agree with me there?
Yes.
And he used, and one of the methods the reasoning that he uses is that he doesn't have a mate to have children with. That's how he refutes this claim that he has children, right?
Yes.
So I don't need a beat that's super dumping, nor do I need another verse in the Quran to tell me what this means. I see it right there in its context and in the explicit statements. So when the very detailed explanation, the Quran, says, how can he have a son when he doesn't have a mate? Clearly just shows Allah needs a mate in order to have a son, because he doesn't have a mate or companion that's equal to him or worthy of being his companion. Therefore, he can't have a son because he doesn't have anybody to mate with. Therefore, it's refuted that he has a son or a daughter. It's done. Pretty clear, right?
Can I go ahead and go now?
Yeah. Do you believe that that's a clear understanding?
I believe that one thing is indeed clear, that Allah does not have a mate, and we don't have a problem with this. So the problem is that Allah is describing in this verse not the totalities of avenues in which, if he willed, he could take a son. Allah is basically clarifying that he doesn't have children, and he's getting rid of one avenue in which that's possible.
Why doesn't he have children? Why doesn't he have children?
In this one avenue, because he doesn't have a mate.
So according to this verse, he would need a mate to have children?
No, and I feel like now you're purposely misrepresenting me, bro, because I'm trying to be as clear as possible.
I don't want to.
He hates the Quran, man.
You hate the Quran. Hey, congratulations. You hate the Quran. If you didn't finish, I want you to go ahead and get the last word, Abu Noor, because you're very respectful. Go ahead and get the last word. I'm gonna go ahead and let somebody else up to also showcase why they hate the Quran too.
Yeah, so I'll just end with, this is the issue here. What you're doing is forcing us down this one avenue. We're not forced down this one avenue by way of the Quran. You're forcing us down this avenue by way of your own understanding, which is premature. I think that I've made it clear that this one avenue of Allah taking a son, if you will, is with the mate. But according to the explicit statements in the Quran, it would not be the only avenue, but Allah gets rid of all of those avenues. And I can leave it there. That's it.
All right. Appreciate you for participating, man. Thank you. Oh, okay. I guess he's really done. All right, Abu Noor, I'll catch you on another one, man. These Muslims hate the Quran, man.
They sure do. There has not been one Muslim today, Avery, that has not hated their Quran. They all hate their Quran. Every one of them.
Switch it back to StreamYard, y'all.
Yeah, they hate their Quran, man.
Yep, they hate the Quran. Y'all see it? Y'all see it? The only thing we're doing is what's the only thing we're doing around here, fellas?
We just read.
We just read.
Reading that Quran.
Reading that Quran to the Muslims, having them read it, and they denying it, rejecting it, twisting it, reinterpreting it. They hate the Quran. They wish Allah never said what he said.
Mm-hmm.